while rehearsing my cover of the legendary Slipknot song Duality, I ran into something a bit perplexing. No one was playing the song right, not even Paul Gray himself, nor his current replacement, V-Man. The closest to the original track I saw anyone play the song was this guy, from a Corey Taylor solo gig. So why does the bassist from the singer's solo band know the song better than anyone in the actual band? And what exactly are they getting wrong? Let's find out. If you're not familiar with Duality, it's the song where you put your fingers into some ice so that they won't hurt as much. It's also the most famous song Slipknot currently has, judging by the 800 million Spotify streams and over 400 million video views on YouTube. The reason I noticed this discrepancy between what's on the track and what people are playing is that I listened to the track and none of the tabs made sense for the music I was hearing. Luckily, I found a video of Paul Gray himself explaining on how to play the song, except that he gets it all wrong. Actually, right now would probably be a good moment to make something very clear. You know, before you write your angry comments. In this video, when I'm talking about right or wrong, right means playing the song as I think it was originally meant to be played according to the original audio and other supporting evidence. Wrong means not doing that. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I'm not dull enough to say that the original artist shouldn't play their track however they like. If they want to differ from the original arrangement, that's entirely within their rights. So when I'm saying that the late Paul Gray got his parts wrong, I'm not saying that he couldn't play what's on the track or anything of the sort. I'm simply saying that he didn't follow the arrangement as it is on the album. So, to find out what exactly was going on in the original track, I took it apart using Moises Ai, which they have provided me free of charge. Thank you for that. There are two parts that the late Mr. Gray is getting wrong about the song, and one part that almost everyone is getting wrong. These happen during the intro, the verse, and the chorus, so pretty minor parts. First off, Paul gets the intro wrong by following what the guitars are doing and not what the bass is actually doing in the recording. Here is what Paul plays. And here is what the original track has. Immediately you can hear how much anticipation and tension the original bass arrangement is creating compared to just following the guitars. By starting in the same octave as the guitars, the bass doesn't stick out immediately and we get to have a second impact in addition to the band kicking in when the bass goes an octave lower at the second half of the intro riff. After spending enough time down there to let everybody know what's going on, we then slide up an octave and then move another octave higher before doing this big slide down into the oil can beating riff. Talk about being dramatic. I'm really sad that they don't actually use this arrangement live. After going through the oil can meets baseball bat riff, Paul then gets the first half of the verse riff a bit wrong. In the lesson video, Paul plays the first repeat in what I assume is the intended way, but goes down into another phrasing on all three other repeats. This riff is extremely difficult to play clean, so I hope you are prepared. The way this riff works is we play steady 16th notes with our right hand at around 145 BPM throughout, while changing notes in a very bouncy and a pretty syncopated rhythm. In the first half of the verse, we follow what the guitar does, while the drums go a bit all over the place. Actually, a lot of the note changes are actually telegraphed by the drum beat, so follow Joey and you'll fit right in. Actually, you really need to follow Joey because he keeps on rushing the ends of the measures, so you will need to anticipate that to be able to keep on the beat. This is what Paul plays on his lesson video. And this is what is played on the record. So it is not a huge difference, but shifting the starting note from F sharp to B creates this emphasis of B at the start of the riff. Although I'm pretty sure that the idea behind this riff is to be this fluid and pretty chaotic thing that only at the end resolves to B. And having the starting note be B as well kind of works against that. Paul then proceeds to not play the second part of the verse riff at all, which I consider to be bordering on heresy, since this part is incredibly cool. On the second half of the verse, we are introduced to this really cool guitar part that harmonizes over the original guitar part. And then the bass goes on to create a third harmony that doesn't follow the other two. These parts also give more credence to the idea that this riff should start chaotic and end pretty resolved, since all three parts end the riff in unison. But hey, having a three-part harmony between bass guitar and two different rhythm guitars in an early 2000s nu metal song is incredibly cool. Check it out. The chords this interaction creates are pretty out there, so I think I kind of get why Slipknot has seemingly opted out of playing this part live. But you shouldn't be afraid to add a bit of spice to your songs. Then again, you might not get top 10 songs that way. Anyway, the third thing that pretty much everyone, including Mr. Gray, is getting wrong is the second half of the chorus. Jim Root comes in with this really cool, slidey octavey thing, and the bass follows it in a lower octave. Except that that is not how it goes on the original track. I know that it is pretty tempting to join the guitar right away, but hold your horses and it will have more impact. On the original track, at the halfway point of the chorus, aka the third repeat of the riff, the bass simply continues on doing what it has done for the previous two, playing the root, the octave and the minor seventh before moving on to the next chord. On the third repeat, we only add the minor third into the equation and then move on. We only get to join the guitar lead on the fourth repeat, thus giving the chorus a more solid feeling of progression. So these are the things that even Slipknot bassists get wrong about Duality. But why is it that even the original writers of the song don't know how it goes? I don't think it is really all about that. Or at least that is not the whole story behind it. See, when you go into the studio to record a song that you have rehearsed and demoed before, there are often moments when the producer wants something different and you just have to give it to them on the spot. Or perhaps they came up with a really cool bass lick while recording the guitars and you just happen to not be there. It happens and it's not the end of the world. In the early 2000s, you might not even have had a reliable way to listen to what you just recorded in the studio, so you are stuck practicing with the same demos that you entered the studio with. Perhaps even right until a few weeks from the release of the album, and then you are going to be going on tour right after. It is really easy to just go with what you already know from rehearsing for the studio, and I get it. At that point, Slipknot already had 2 albums worth of material, and adding a third one on top of that is going to be a lot of work. So perhaps you only focus on getting the basics of the song down and not worrying about the more intricate stuff. I think that those are all pretty convincing reasons on why Paul Gray didn't play the track like it is on the album. But what about V-Man? He would have had to learn the songs from the recorded material and still chooses to play the song almost exactly as Paul played it live. That would lead me to believe that Slipknot simply chose to use a different arrangement for their live shows somewhere along the way. Perhaps it just works better live this way, or they simply got used to how it sounds. When you're a touring artist, playing 100 shows a year, all without click tracks, the last thing you want is for someone to come in and add something new to a song that you've already played 1,000 or more times. That can really throw you off, and I can see why they perhaps thought that it wasn't worth all the trouble. Lastly, I'd like to cover my bases and go back to the verse riff. There's this popular tab on the internet that marks the first half of the verse to be played as sustained notes and not with the fast picking. And they're right. This actually has a grain of truth in it, or more than a few grains of truth in it, which makes our job of finding what exactly was intended to be on the original track much harder. I ended up with 2 different ways to play the verse riff. One is exactly as it is played on the album, same rhythm with the note changes, except that every note is played as a sustained note. That is how they recorded it. Paul, however, plays the same riff with alternate picked 16th notes. Given how the riff that Paul plays here is almost exactly the same as it is on the album, I'm inclined to believe that they originally intended for the whole verse to be played with alternate picked 16th notes. Also, given Paul's tone and the way he plays it on the video, I'm also inclined to believe that they just couldn't get it tight enough to work with the arrangement they got, so they simplified it. If you try to tackle this riff yourself, you will very soon realize how hard it is to lock in with the drums with Joey rushing on all the time. So my interpretation of this is that this riff was originally supposed to be played alternate picked, but it got simplified in the studio for a variety of reasons. I choose to play the riff alternate picked because I just believe that it works better to keep the energy going on in the verse, but playing it with just sustained notes is, in my opinion, equally as right, as long as you get the rhythm right. Check out my full playthrough of Duality via the annotations appearing here soon. Go get your tabs, go practice, and I will see you in the next video. In the meanwhile, you can check out my Ko-fi page for my tone packs, presets, and a way to support what I'm doing directly. That's all for now. Bye bye!